But Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida thinks Congress needs to go the other way and add to the president's powers to control trade. We welcome Representative Gaetz to Bloomberg Now, coming to us from Capitol Hill. So thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Well, thank you. And I know that Senator Grassley's worried about his Iowa farmers. We all want the same things, more access to international markets. The question is whether we get that access by having other countries negotiate with 535 members of Congress at one time, or whether we create a broader scope of authority for the president. That would create a deterrent environment, whether other countries would be less likely to impose tariffs, and then giving those great farmers, I know Senator Grassley cares about, more access in Asia and around the world.
So in short compass, explain what the legislation you support would do.
Yeah, I'm one of the sponsors of the Reciprocal Trade Act, which would give the president the authority to impose any tariff on another country if that country imposes that very tariff on us. For example, India has a 50% tariff on American motorcycles. We would then have the opportunity to impose that same tariff at the president's discretion if this legislation were to become law. And again, David, the goal isn't to have more tariffs. It's actually to have a freer trade environment. But if other countries knew that our president could go to their level of a tariff, they would be less likely to discriminate against U.S. goods.
So to pursue that point about lower tariffs, would you favor going the other way as well? If another country had lower tariffs than we do, would you favor our lowering our tariffs to those levels, such as trucks, for example, from Europe?
I do believe that the president ought to have the authority not only to impose the stick, but also to offer the carrot in circumstances that you've described, and I think that those would go hand in hand as reforms.
What about the Constitution? Because the Constitution ultimately really gives a lot of authority to the Congress when it comes to trading relations. And is the Congress really given up a lot of that?
No, I think that the Congress can impose benchmarks. For example, we wouldn't want to give the president the authority to impose higher tariffs than another country imposes on us. And so I think that we need regular dialogue and back and forth. We need the folks who are engaged in the administration, or really any administration's trade policy, to regularly brief the Congress. If they exceed the length of their leash, that can always be yanked back. But I think that right now we're in an environment where the United States has largely been taken advantage of in trade. We've viewed trade not as a way to build up the American worker, but as a way to ingratiate other countries to the United States. And often that's been at the expense of the forgotten men and women in this country who want to go work hard and have their products treated fairly in the global square.
So Congressman, give us a sense of what you're looking for in the State of the Union address tonight on the specific subject of trade, because I've read some places that some, if I can call them trade hawks, are worried the president might get a little wobbly here on China. They may be backing off some, and in fact, he should be more aggressive. Is that your attitude?
I have no concern that the president's going to be anything other than tough on China. He understands China for the threat that it is, and really for the first time in the post-World War II era, you've got a president who is understanding the fusion between economic and strategic and military interests in our relationship with China. As for what we're expecting for the State of the Union, this really is the kickoff to the 2020 campaign. The president's got to build his coalition by exciting the base on immigration and border security, and then at the same time appealing to those Rust Belt states, you know, Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, Wisconsin. This election in 2020 will be won or lost in the Rust Belt, and I think that's why trade is such an important policy for him to emphasize in the State of the Union tonight.
Congressman, you also mentioned border security just now. Let's talk about border security, the wall, whatever it really consists of exactly. What do you expect the president to say on that subject? And let me be very specific. Are some of your Republican colleagues starting to back off of the president's position?
No, I think that what the president will do is point out the hypocrisy with members of the Democratic Congress who have in the past supported border security and barriers and fencing and walls. But now they choose not to do so, largely because it is viewed as a political win for the president. And so I think that the president will call for unity on immigration, but the tools he will use to call for that unity will be the specific examples of votes and positions that Democratic members of Congress have taken that are inconsistent with the views currently held. And I think that hopefully will create some momentum. I also expect the president to lay the predicate for the utilization of emergency powers if that becomes necessary. I don't think he'll invoke those powers tonight, but I think he will make the case for their proper use in the event that the conference committee is unable to produce an acceptable work product.
Congressman, do you think you have a good sense of where the American people are on this subject? Because there was a poll that just came up from CBS, for example, that said the really substantial majority of Americans are not willing to shut down the government again over this wall. Whether they're for it or against it, they don't think it's worth that. Is that where you think the American people are?
in a weird way, the last shutdown, as painful as it was, paves the way for action, even if it's executive action following the State of the Union, because you're right, the American people do not want a shutdown, and I think that they would view the president's use of his executive authority as preferable to another shutdown, and that may be the only way out of this. Give the president a win on his wall, give the country a win on avoiding the shutdown, and then move forward addressing trade and some of the other issues that I think will be central to the 2020 campaign.
Congressman, thank you so much. We always benefit from your being with us and really appreciate it. That's Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz.